Look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it.
I know some smart rich people, but there's a lot of stupid rich people.
There are few people better at covering the train wreck that is Trump's current campaign than Lawrence O'Donnell. Outside the Midas Mighty, of course. His suffer no fools, take no shite approach is refreshing and needed, considering the subject matter at hand here.
New York's stupidest rich people gathered in one room today and proved how stupid they are with reactions like this.
Caracas, Venezuela, has almost no crime. Next year, I'm going to suggest that the Economic Club hold its meeting in Caracas because we'll be safer than we are in our country if they win. We'll be far safer.
Now just think about how stupid you have to be to say that. Then think about how stupid you have to be to clap for that.
With Donald Trump breaking the record for most words said, least sense made, there was, as to be expected, a variety of responses across social media. And variety, I mean those of us not cocooned off from reality and those on Fox News.
To the extent that he said things that were coherent, and some of it was just sort of words randomly chosen out of a dictionary, yeah. I think. To the extent that he said anything that was coherent, it was kind of what we would expect. It was a promise of more income tax cuts, higher tariffs, which, by the way, tariffs are taxes.
Well, I think we just make it very clear. Tariffs add to the price of goods. It's really that simple.
You see, most were left dumbfounded that this is the candidate swaths of the population believed to be the better option regarding economic policy. And one of those was Lawrence O'Donnell. Followed up with a sequel on par to his segment a few weeks back in response to yet another low-energy, unhinged, incoherent word salad from the former president.
Then think about how stupid you have to be to clap for that.
I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. Make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Child care is child care. That guy talking isn't the problem. It's those people clapping that have brought this country to this crisis point in its history as a democracy.
And this is what gets to me as well as Lawrence clearly, right? Is the assumption that his wealth somehow equates to intelligence, or even more so, him being fit for the presidency. You know, when you inherit enormous wealth, you have the luxury of bankrupting your way to a business that finally works. Most people don't get the luxury of failing up, as Michelle Obama articulated at the DNC and Joe Biden just reiterated today.
Understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. If we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance. If things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No. We don't get to change the rules so we always win. If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top. No. in America, we do something.
I mean, I wonder whether he has any notion what a hard day's work is. I mean, all he did was lose his father's money. And then get in trouble and have to owe a lot of other people money. And then borrow a lot of money and give tax cuts to the super wealthy and end up with the largest debt any president's left behind in 4 years. He has an incredible record. An incredible record.
So when I hear people claim that Trump's the better candidate because he's a billionaire businessman, number one, go listen to his answer on childcare. And please, somebody tell me, is that an intelligent person?
But today was also about Donald Trump's economic speech, and we watched a lot of it. And I would dare any of you to listen to his answer on childcare and tell me what the hell he was talking about. It was one of the more incoherent things I've ever heard. He thinks tariffs are going to pay for everything. We know that they're a tax on the consumer. But this really highlights a big problem that everyone is saying, well, Trump is so transparent and Trump's out there and that's all that matters. What matters is the content of what he's saying. And none of it is explainable. This issue, which is a big priority for people, obviously a central plank of what's going on in the Harris campaign, he doesn't have an answer besides tariffs. And J.D. Vance yesterday was talking about just have grandma and grandpa do more, that's some sort of solution for people. He's going to have energy prices, drill baby drill, even though we're producing more oil than we ever have before, leading the world, more tax cuts for the rich, and tariffs are the only way that we're going to be paying for it.
And two, you can't use his success as a gauge without including the context that he was given boosts up a step ladder while everyone else has it pulled 3 steps further every step they take. And even so, set that aside, right? What about his performance while in office? Because that very much contradicts the claim that he is the better candidate. He tripled the national debt, left with less jobs than he came in with as a result of his horrendous management of the pandemic, downplaying it, thinking it would just go away. And he accomplished nothing but tax breaks for his friends in high places.
Because you're all people that have a lot of money. I know 20 of you and you're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts. We're going to pay off our debt.
And even so, if you were to say, maybe this time it will be different. Well, how so? Because Goldman Sachs, and I mean, they're not exactly the bastions of liberal policy, they don't think so.
For 4 straight years, I fought for American workers like I would fight for my own family. I took care of our economy like I would take care of my own company.
It turns out, according to early analyses, and again, she's only been the nominee for a little while here, her plans could actually be better for U.S. economic growth than Donald Trump's tariff plans. That's according to the Wall Street firm Goldman Sachs.
Reuters reports that Goldman says this. Goldman Sachs sees biggest boost to U.S. economy from Harris win, and that was one of their analysts yesterday. So
Fortune 500 CEOs, they don't think so.
We look back into the data, and we're looking at this now for the last 4 months. We've been pointing out that there are no Fortune 500 CEOs who are supporting former President Trump, and that is a historic break going back to William Howard Taft and through Calvin Coolidge and Ronald Reagan and the Bushes and everything. Is that it's been anywhere from 40 to 60% public and financial support. It's zero now, and it was zero in 2016. And the Trump economic package frightens them. It's extremely inflationary. The tariffs, 10% across the board on all imports, that's just crazy. It leads to a 3% increase for sure in inflation and plunging in the GDP. Right. And that's before retaliatory gestures. The increase in the deficit, he wants to cut $5 trillion of taxes with no commensurate cut in expenditures. So these are problems. He doesn't believe in the independence of the Fed.
And I imagine they all know a bit about business, because Trump being this economic guru is a facade, and I'm glad that more people are calling it to attention.
Well, I think we just make it very clear. Tariffs add to the price of goods. It's really that simple. If you're a business and you need to import things and you have to pay a tariff, you have to make that extra expense up. It's interesting to me that Donald Trump brags about how he's the only president who wants to have skyrocketing tariffs. You ought to stop and think about why that is. It's because other presidents, both Republican and Democrat, understand that tariffs ultimately are really damaging to a country's economy. They make it more difficult for us to compete, and they would push inflation up. So Donald Trump's economic policy here is a disaster, and you don't have to take it from me. As you said earlier, Lawrence, Goldman Sachs not exactly a bastion of liberal progressive economic policy, themselves have said that Donald Trump's tariff policies would cost our economy billions.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.